And now it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers for today. Anu is the Director, Business Development and Marketing at Indotronics Avani Group. Anu is an experienced business and development marketing professional with a demonstrated history of success in the information technology and services industry. Skilled in sales, social media marketing, and business growth, Anu has over 10 years of experience in the staffing industry. She's also an award-winning speaker and president of Somerville Toastmasters. And now we'd like to give our speakers a short introduction of themselves. David Johnson, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hi. Spring, thank you, Spring. I will just say a few words and then I'll let Joy and David
Perfect.
Introduce themselves. Thank you so much, Spring, for the nice introduction. A very good morning to all of you. It gives me immense pleasure to host this panel discussion featuring two very good friends, allies, consummate procurement professionals, and champions of diversity. Amanda Gorman's poem, The Hill We Climb, has a line which goes, "For there is always light, if only we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it." And it is with that in mind we approach this topic, diversity in the contingent workforce. Now, there are many reasons why this topic is important, but if you are a numbers person, this stat may appeal to you. Today, the percentage of the contingent workforce is estimated to be about 26%. That number has gotten further impetus due to the current global conditions. And in less than a decade, even the most conservative estimates expects that number to be north of 40%. And some aggressive estimates quote an even higher percentage. The economic impact is reason enough to understand why we should be discussing this. Now, as a preamble to the first question, I would love to share that I just heard about an international organization called the Human Library. Their tagline is, "Unjudge someone." It is a movement that started in Denmark 20 odd years ago. The organization uses a library analogy of lending people rather than books. These people have experienced prejudice, social exclusion, or stigma. And participants can ask them questions so as to learn about the other person and also challenge their own prejudices. This learning organization uses the power of personal storytelling to connect people. So I would love to start this discussion with requesting Joy and David to share their story. Joy, I'd love to hear a little bit about you and how your personal journey led you to the path of being an advocate for DE&I.
Yes, I am here to represent the supplier advocacy part of this conversation. I have been with New York Life for more than 30 years, so I was 2 when I started. I manage the supplier diversity program, and I have been doing that in the past 10 years. So how my journey on the path of being an advocate for diversity started, I guess, when I came to the U.S. I was not born in the U.S. My family came here in the U.S. when I was 19 years old. My father was a civilian employee of the U.S. Naval Base in the Philippines. And when he retired, he had an opportunity to immigrate to the U.S. with his entire family. And that's what we did. We left everything in the Philippines, and I was around almost 20 years old then. So we had to adapt to an entirely new culture. So everything was new and different, new country, right? So I know how it is how to feel different. Because of this, diversity, equity, inclusion are words that are meaningful and important to me. It's something that I'm passionate about. So this has led to me joining or becoming a part of the core members of the New York Life Asian Network Group when it was first formed. That's almost 20 years ago. Through my volunteer work, I eventually became the co-chair for that. And shortly after being a co-chair, I was assigned to manage the New York Life's Supplier Diversity Program. So again, that was 10 years ago. So my involvement with Supplier Diversity is a story of an immigrant who has passion for diversity, who took action on her passion by being involved with the ERGs as a volunteer and then becoming a leader. And fortunately for me, it evolved into a passion and job merged into one. Being in this position as a head of Supplier Diversity Program helps me give a voice to immigrants like me. I get paid to do a job that is aligned with my passion, so I'm thankful for that.
Thank you so much, Joy. That is indeed something to be grateful for, to do what you are passionate about. Not happens that's not always happening to everyone. And now I will ask David the same question. Would love to hear what led you to this journey.
I think anyone who's passionate about supplier diversity and diversity in general has some skin in the game. Diversity is very personal to me, not because I emigrated to the U.S. from another country, but because I came from an economically depressed background. I grew up in the projects in government subsidized housing in Staten Island, New York. Although if you ask some people, Staten Island is definitely a different country than the one that we live in. And for me, it was the idea growing up that I had to get a job. I couldn't be an entrepreneur. I couldn't be a business owner. And the idea of success for me wasn't a doctor or a lawyer or the head of supplier management. It was a basketball player or a football player. And understanding that people who've grown up like this don't have the visibility into the idea of success and living a successful life as a supplier for a multi-billion-dollar organization led me to the position that I'm in now, right? Giving opportunity to smaller suppliers from diverse backgrounds and being a part of many different wonderful organizations that allow me to give these opportunities as a 20+ year procurement professional to build relationships. And that's the joy that I have as an ally.
Thank you so much, David. I have heard your story before, but it still doesn't stop me feeling inspired when you talk about what your dreams were as 11, 12-year-old, how you grew up, as you said, in an economically depressed environment, and where you are today, heading supplier management in Zoetis. So that's wonderful to hear. So at this point, we'd like to conduct a small poll of the audience, which Spring will.
Perfect. We do have our first question open. If everybody just wants to jump in with a response, we'll keep this open for about 15, 20 seconds. The question is what vertical industry best describes your company? Staffing company, corporation, MSP, or other? Okay, we'll keep it open for about another 15 seconds. With it, again, you have your chance to just chime in to vote if you're a staffing company, corporation, MSP, or other. Okay, and we will close out the poll and publish the results for everyone to see. Just over 83% on the watching the session today is a staffing firm, and changed just a little, about 36% other and 63% with the staffing firm. Great. Now I'll open up our second poll. It's open now for you to give us your input. Have there been discussions about contingent workforce diversity in your company? Again, we'll keep this open for about another 25 seconds to give everybody a chance to respond. Again, the question, have there been discussions about contingent workforce diversity in your company? Right now, we have 66% yes and 33% no, and we'll keep it open for just another few seconds. Fantastic, and I will just publish the results so everyone can see. So within the question, about 62% had said yes, there have been discussions, and about 37% said no. Fantastic. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Anu.
Thank you so much, Spring. I am impressed that they are talking a lot, at least amongst the audience. There seem to be quite a few people who think that the topic is being discussed. What are your feelings on the poll results? Joy?
Yes. Actually, I was surprised in the sense that, or maybe not surprised, like 60%, right, being having a discussion is a good number. But I would think that, just overall as being an employer, I would think that's something that employees would be really talking about naturally. So, but it's high, it's majority, so that's still a good number.
Yes, it is. It is definitely promising. David, your thoughts?
I think it's fantastic to see that, our providers, our staffing agencies and our MSPs are really and truly taking this seriously. We, as procurement professionals, are always looking for ways to build high functioning teams, and diversity is a great way to do that, especially in the contingent labor force, right? I'm a procurement professional. I'm looking to supplement the talent that I have. I want a different perspective, and a diverse talent pool in my contingent workforce is a way for me to do that, to bring people in that have different viewpoints than the guys that I work with every day. So that's a wonderful thing to see that contingent, that our staffing firms are looking at diversity as a qualification and not just a box to check.
So you remind me, what you said reminded me of what the founder of Honda said. So very, very high level thinking, David, because he was like, I want diversity of heart, even if someone doesn't agree with me, even if I don't like that person, I want to hear what another point of view is. And that's why he made a company like he did. I mean, he built up a company like he did, I guess. So this is where we move into the actual point of discussion, which is to both of you. What, according to you, or rather, why, according to you, should we even be discussing about diversity in the contingent workforce, which is a step beyond supplier diversity? And are you hearing about it in your respective industry circles? David, if you want to take this question first.
Well, I kind of already answered that a little bit, right? I am a corporate, I'm a corporate person. I want to build a highly functioning team, right? I want my team to be able to adjust to changes in the environment, to changes into the organization, to changes in the way that we decide to do business quickly. I need a team that's diverse, right? I have global expansion thought. I want to expand in China. I want to expand in Australia or wherever. If I don't have a diverse team, or a team with a diverse mindset, those goals are going to be difficult for me to achieve. And as a corporation, it's harder to find a dedicated headcount that can meet that goal. So I go to a contingent worker. And that person, that staffing firm or MSP that can provide me with that contingent worker is a higher value supplier to me than one of the big four. In my personal opinion, right? I tell a story, and it's a very popular story if anybody got a degree in marketing or anything like that. It's the story of Chevrolet and the Chevy Nova. Chevy wanted to market the Chevy Nova in Latin America as an area of growth. They decided that the name was fine. It's okay. We're going to put the Chevy Nova out in Latin America. It didn't sell at all. It was a horrible failure for them. No one on the team realized that Nova in Spanish is no va, which means doesn't go? Who wants a car that doesn't go? If there was someone with a diverse mindset or someone from a diversity council that said, why don't you look at this? They may have had a different level of success, and it wouldn't be the biggest failure in marketing classes in college now. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, David. Today is the day my lawnmower company decides to come and mow my lawn. But anyways, my apologies for the background noise. But Joy, the same question to you. Why do you feel we should be discussing this? And are you hearing murmurs of it in your industry circle, like Financial Services Roundtable and the like?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll continue on the example that David talked about. I think that emphasizes that a diverse group or a diverse workforce leads to diversity of thought, and that's very important. I mean, look at that example. I mean, like Nova. If somebody had thought of that, or there's a person in the team who understands that, it probably wouldn't have happened. But to answer your question about, am I hearing this discussed more in the industry? Yes, I'm starting to hear. How in supplier diversity, our focus is majority ownership. It's all about the diversity of ownership. But I'm starting to hear more discussions about the diversity of workforce. And why is that? It's because I think contingent labor, right, are employers too of their own company. And so with that, I think the importance of diversity within the contingent labor's company is important. And it's something that should already be looking at, whether it's being talked about or not. This is something that everybody should be, paying attention to. Being part of the supplier diversity ecosystem, I think that, when it comes to diversity of workforce, talking about that, if you think of a contingent labor being an extension of a company, right? I mean, David's talking about it, right? Like they have their employees and they hire contingent laborers to continue to do the work for their company. Then it just makes sense that if we have our DEI program, right, that tracks, that advocates for the diversity of employees, the diversity of workforce, it makes sense that the contingent labor does the same. Because I can tell you that I've been part of many awards committee for MBE or WEB awards, and what I'm seeing is that the companies that win the awards are the ones that have similar capabilities as the corporations, where they have a supplier diversity program. They are involved in volunteering or community development. So I think it makes sense that if in my case, if New York Life has an ERG, I think it makes sense that our vendors also have ERG, because again, I think that it carries forward. Like I see the contingent labor being an extension of our company.
No, you make a very good point, Joy. Another thing that comes to mind, in the 10 years that I have been in this industry, I see that more and more contractors or contingent workers are doing more and more mission critical projects. So they are part of projects within large companies that has far-reaching consequences. So it's across the board that they are there, and the numbers of them is increasing. So and for the outsider, the contingent worker is a New York Life, or a Zoetis, or a Pfizer employee, even though they might be an Indotronics contingent worker, right? So to your point, I also totally agree with you. So here I want to share a little interesting anecdote from my company. So last year, the past 18 months, Indotronics has been involved in a very large volume staffing project. Now, it is honestly going to go down in Indotronics history books as one of our most successful account management stories, where the team
Congratulations.
at it, 24/7, literally. And the interesting thing is, they worked on staffing the project. At the end of the year, when we tracked the diversity metrics, the diversity numbers were staggering in a good way. It was overwhelmingly women and women of color. Now, in a year that was 2020, when a disproportionate number of women left the workforce, Indotronics had a very different story to tell. Now, that makes me think that had D&I in the contingent workforce been intentional across the global economy, maybe so many women would not have had to opt out of the workforce. A McKinsey study reports that if we act now to improve gender equity, it could add $13 trillion to the GDP. That is a staggering number. So, yes, it is the right thing to do. But that being said, again, a question to both of you. What do you see as potential challenges of expecting your supplier to provide a diverse contingent workforce? Joy, would you like to take this question first?
Sure. I actually would say I wouldn't focus on the potential challenge. I actually want to see at it as a proactive thinking. Capturing a diversity of a workforce offers data and opportunities. Like I said, that's a proactive way of looking in workforce diversity trends. So if any, I see the focus aligning with corporations' DEI initiatives. I mentioned that earlier, that if any, like our focus in supply diversity are vendor ownership, right? The diversity, the ownership. But this is the type of conversation that actually aligns to our DEI initiative. So I think it's a proactive way of thinking. Plus, it's for small diverse vendors, I think, to start tracking this data. This is our conversation in the earlier question. If they have the capability, it's a good information to track. And look at the example that you used that with the Indotronics success story, that you are already tracking it. You're seeing the importance and the impact of the diverse, representation in even in this project that you're doing, right? So if this emerging conversation turns into a data being required by the corporations later on, let's say if corporations start requiring vendors to track the diversity of their own workforce, I would think that if you're doing it, then you're ahead, you're proactive, you're ready when it's requested. And at the very minimum, if you're planning to apply for the best MBE or WBE or the best vendor award, you are ready. You can provide this information. So.
Thank you so much, Joy. That is so good to hear. That made me smile. David, I'll ask you the same question. What do you see as challenges?
I feel like Joy had a really comprehensive response to it, to the question. But for me, I live in an IT world. The biggest challenge that I see is availability of resources. You talked about the amount of women who left the workforce in 2020. This is absolutely 100% a reality for some of us, right? I need an SAP resource. There is no resource available because everybody's looking for an SAP resource. So I'll take what I can get. If I have a supplier who's ingrained in my ecosystem, a supplier who's made themselves a strategic resource for me, I should be able to say to them, I'm specifically looking to fill a contingent worker with a woman or a veteran or something like that in this area. I'm going to give you some time, find me that person. But, in my experience thus far, these last couple of months, resource availability has been a challenge.
Thank you so much, David. That was, you made a point about time, and that is invaluable.
Yes.
Because a lot of staffing companies do, we have to make sure that we provide within a certain period of time. That is one of the metrics we are judged on. But if you want intentional diversity in the workforce, you have to give us more time to begin with.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it may still not be the answer. For example, women, they left the workforce for their children. They are usually the people who take care of their older seniors at home. So they are the ones who take a back seat again. What do you do if a woman is not even in the market to work? How do you encourage that? So definitely. So that is where the question of a staffing industry analyst, which publishes a lot of research material on the staffing industry. One of the main things they said, as far as having diversity in the contingent workforce, they said there has to be a corporate mandate on it, which means that, I don't know what it means. In my mind, what I think it means is there has to be more support from corporations and to help women in the workforce, or people of color, or any form of diversity, visible or invisible. It is something that is a evolving thing, and this discussion itself is a step towards it. And we also notice that there is a fear of legal ramifications to employment, because the corporation is not really the employer of contingent workers. So a little bit of worry on that front.
Yeah.
And also, as a corporation, I feel that they have to start thinking beyond whether the owner is diverse or not. Now we have to actively start asking questions about their work. But thank you so much. Both of you had very, very valid points. And so at this point, I think it's a great point to ask you, what do you think, David, I'll ask you this first. What do you think suppliers can do differently? Any innovative takeaways which Indotronics and other staffing companies here can implement?
So Joy said two things that I thought were great, right? One, as corporations, we focus on the ownership, right? We tend to say, oh, wow, I can now report that I do $2 million extra with a diverse supplier, and that goes to my reporting back to the government. But as a staffing company, you have to promote that you have diverse contingent workers, right? You may not be a diversity candidate, but if you can bring me good extended members of my team, and you can say to me, I have, women, I have people who were incarcerated, I have people who were, veterans of foreign wars. That's exciting to me as a corporate citizen, right? I want to be corporate, so I want to be socially responsible. I want to give people opportunity to expand, and I am personally invested in, DEI. I want to know that. That's more important to me than, I can get you this person for $10 cheaper than the next guy, or I can build out this program. I can bring in a diverse thought set. That matters. That's a key differentiator for you as a supplier. And that's, again, just my 2 cents. But that would appeal to me.
Oh, I knew you're muted, but I just wanted to jump in really quick to let you know this has been such an engaging session that has really resonated with our audience, and we have had some great comments. To share with you quick one, David, you're so right. As a diverse supplier in a niche market, this person is often the only recruiter in the room with diverse professional development organizations, because as they said, the Big Four does not know that the particular group exists, which is great. Another one, Anu, somebody mentioned, great point, more women in leadership and decision-making roles would ensure that an organization would consider the needs of the women who are leaving the workforce. She has a client who's doing very well in that regard by allowing workers to adjust hours and on-off premises statuses based on school schedules for their children when needed. This has been a great session. Just wanted to let you know we have about another 13 minutes. We'll give about another 5, and then we can go with Q&A if that works.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Spring. And just hearing those comments makes me feel a lot excited. You're doing the right thing. David, you mentioned incarcerated. That is such a good point. My boss and I discuss that all the time. And he is, he's of the same thought process as Jamie Dimon and all those big leaders. Diversity is also about that. Give second chance. I may have made a mistake, and sometimes a small mistake, I keep paying a price for it all my life. No, not done. Corporations should give a second chance. And so that is definitely, now I know another topic for discussion in the next one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm passionate about, obviously growing up the way that I grew up, some of the people that I grew up with made mistakes. I've got a very good friend who spent some time as an on-the-corner pharmaceutical representative. Let's put it that way. He was a drug dealer, and he made some mistakes. And fortunately, he ended up in a program that taught him Cisco engineering. He managed to come out. He got a certificate, and he couldn't find a job because of his background. Because this is something that you have to reveal. I was fortunate enough to connect him to someone. He came to me. I mentored him for a while. I helped him with his resume, and I connected him with someone, and he's been a Cisco engineer for 10 years now. But it's a really common challenge. You've gone through this process. You made a mistake when you were 17 years old, and it follows you for the rest of your life. And it's a circle that unless corporate citizens work hard to break, it'll never break. So that's something that I'm also passionate about as part of it. And it's not something, you're right, it's not something that people talk about, but it's a reality.
Thank you, David. I'm glad you brought that up. Joy, the same question to you. What do you think we as suppliers can do differently?
Yeah, so we're already talking about, tracking the diversity of workforce, right? So if a company already has that, I think the next piece is, I mentioned to you that for award-winning vendors, they have programs that mimic their clients' programs. So if you already have DEI initiatives like tracking diverse workforce, I think the next piece is allowing your employees to have a employee resource groups, because I don't see corporations requiring this from their vendors, but I think given the greater awareness about social justice, right? ERG are good grassroots program and resources to give for even smaller companies to offer their employees. So I think that's something that, as a follow-up to your proactive tracking of the diversity of the workforce, the next piece is giving the workforce resources, even just the ERGs where they can just meet together and talk about their own challenges in their own, community.
Thank you so much, Joy, because that brings to mind another anecdote from one of our large staffing projects. One of the reasons that the large volume staffing project that I was talking about was successful was really because, yes, we were, the account management team did a stellar job. Also, the client did help us. There's a case that the account manager of that project talks about. A mother of two. She was in the motel. She didn't have the resources to pay the bills for that week, and she would have not been able to do her project because she was going to be out of the only home she knew with her two children. So not only Indotronics, but the client also stepped up and talked to the motel, tried to give an advance, did all those things to enable that woman to continue doing that project. So it has to be the client, the supplier, they have to come together. And it is on that note, I'll ask you my final question. Of course, your final thoughts, but from the perspective of what supplier diversity professionals and procurement professionals can do to achieve these results. Whoever wants to go first.
It has to become a requirement. If I'm building out what I want to call a highly functioning team as a procurement professional, it becomes a requirement, right? I'm not going to come to you and say, I need a group to do A, B, C, and D. I should come to you and say, I need a group to do A, B, C, and D, but it has to include diverse thought, right? I may not be able to say I have to have this many women or this many, but I need diversity of thought in my group, because as I'm building the relationship and I'm putting on my head of supplier management hat now, this is a long-term deal. You're going to be a part of my team. I need you to be intelligent. I need you to be creative. I need you to be innovative. And I need that diversity of thought to do that, because you're not just giving me what I need now, you're giving me what I need over long term. So you should be able to think. We'll talk the Gartner way, right? Gartner always talks about bimodal, right? You should be able to do what I need you to do right now to keep the lights on, but then you should also have that creativity and that innovative thought process to help me get to the next version, right? You give me utopia now, and then you give me utopia later. And that's what a diverse group of thinkers will do for you. And it has to be part of the requirements from a procurement perspective. So as a procurement person, when I look at my statements of work from my tech guys, I go, okay, that's great. What am I getting? How are they going to help me later? All right. Otherwise, this is just a butt in the seat. I need thoughts too. I need brains.
Thank you. Thank you. One of my favorite people in the world is a woman called Mindy Kaling. She is a comedic writer, actor, and she's just awesome. Okay. And she says that I just don't want to be out there as the best Indian female comedian that exists. I feel like I can go head to head with the best white male comics that are out there. Why would I want to self-categorize myself into a smaller group that I'm able to compete with? So, and I think that is the thought process we should bring to the table. So, Joy, what are your final thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, it's all about relationship. It's the vendors, developing really a strong relationship with their clients, understanding, the trends in the hiring trends, right, in the specific markets, in the industry of their clients that they're serving, and being able to offer that. But I think building that symbiotic relationship between the employers, rather clients and vendors, would naturally create a channel of important conversations like diversity. So I think at the end of the day, it's having the good relationship where you can talk about anything. You can be transparent and honest about, the challenges of each other, right? Because, client or vendor, we all have our own challenges, and share the successes also. Because I think if we all know that, then we're able to work together better. And I think that's something that I think we just have to always remember. At the end of the day, it's the people, it's the relationship that the more we know about each other, the more we can help each other.
Fantastic. In the final few moments we have, I would love to get one of our questions in front of the panel for your thoughts. Someone has asked, what are some of the co-employment concerns when it comes to ERGs and the contingent workforce, and how would you resolve?
So I guess I'll respond to that since I mentioned ERGs. I'm not an expert on HR laws, but I know that, we need to be careful about, the contingent labor participation participating as employees. So that's something that we want to separate. So that's why when I say that, I'm thinking that it's not the contingent labor participating at our company's ERGs, but your own, in this case, like Indotronics, forming its own ERGs for its own employees. So there's no really, there shouldn't be co-employment issues there, because it's not New York Life, in our case, providing ERG participation to the contingent workforce, but it's Indotronics providing it to their employees, and some of them happen to be working for, let's say, New York Life. So I think, Anu, you know more about this relationship, but I think that solves it by saying, like, yeah, have an ERG, but not the New York Life ERG. You form your own ERG within your own employers. You're muted, Anu.
Yes, I agree with you. You as a client can help us build it, give your ideas and thoughts around it. But yes, definitely, it's not like you can go and participate in New York Live's ERG. David, did you want to add to that?
So again, not an expert on HR law, just a person who thinks it's very silly, right? You're a contingent worker coming into my organization. I can give you access to my employees' personally identifiable information, but you can't come to my employee luncheon. It's always been silly to me, and it's just a challenge. So, Kevin, if you figure out what the answer is to that, you let me know. It's funny.
Loved your response.
Well, it was great having you all with us today. As I showed you, the very engaging session that has resonated with our audience. I'd also like to thank everyone for joining in.